into exploitation. Second, psychological resilience as core infrastructure. Mental health can't remain a downstream fix. Stress regulation, emotional vocabulary, and conflict repair should be treated like image. Think of the next generation of explorers, not just as kids with backpacks or astronauts with patches, but as system navigators, people who will inherit a planet, a digital substrate, and a narrative all at once. Safeguarding them means changing the terrain they grow up in, not merely handing them better gear. Here are the priority shifts, the load-bearing beams, not the paint. First, truth literacy over information access. Access is already abundant, discernment is not. The priority is teaching how to test claims, detect incentives, and spot narrative manipulation. This includes understanding statistics, uncertainty, and how emotions are used to steer belief. Exploration without epistemic hygiene turns curiosity into exploitation. Second, psychological resilience as core infrastructure. Mental health can't remain a downstream fix. Stress regulation, emotional vocabulary, and conflict repair should be treated like literacy and numeracy, baseline skills. Explorers who can't self-stabilize become easy to coerce, burn out, or radicalize. Calm minds travel farther than anxious ones. Third, ecological embeddedness, not environmental guilt. Future explorers must see themselves as participants in ecosystems, not sinners borrowing a doomed planet. Hands-on regeneration, planting, restoring, measuring recovery builds agency. Stewardship beats shame every time. Fourth, aligned AI co-exploration, not passive automation. AI should be framed as a collaborator that explains its reasoning, surfaces uncertainty, and invites correction. Black box authority erodes human judgment. Transparent tools strengthen it. The goal is amplified curiosity, not outsourced thinking. Fifth, economic safety flaws that de-risk curiosity. Exploration dies when survival is precarious. Whether through basic income mechanisms, universal services, or radical reductions in cost of living, young people need room to fail safely. History's great leaps came from societies that tolerated nonlinear paths. Sixth, open knowledge commons with teeth. Research tools and data critical to humanity's future should default to open with protections against enclosure and misuse. Exploration stalls when knowledge is locked behind paywalls or patents that outlive their social value. Seventh, narrative repair. The stories we hand down matter. If the future is framed as collapse, kids optimize for escape or nihilism. If it's framed as repair, they optimize for skill, cooperation, and patience. Explorers need a horizon worth walking toward. The strange truth is this: safeguarding the next generation of explorers isn't about predicting where they'll go. It's about ensuring they inherit minds, systems, and stories that let them go anywhere, without losing themselves along the way. Let's treat this as a working theory, not a decree from Mount Science. Public opinion didn't turn against the war on drugs because people suddenly loved drugs. It turned because the metaphor was wrong. Wars want enemies, health problems want care, markets want regulation, cultures want meaning. So if we were to morph the war into something else entirely, the most effective shift is not policy first, but frame first. Change the story people think they're inside. Here are the strongest reframes, layered rather than mutually exclusive. One, from War on Drugs, Public Health and Resilience Project. Once you call it a war, casualties become acceptable. Once you call it health, neglect becomes immoral. This reframing moves addiction from moral failure to treatable condition, and dealers from evil masterminds to unregulated market actors. Countries that leaned this way didn't become utopias, but they dramatically reduced overdose deaths, HIV transmission, and incarceration blowback. The quiet trick: people don't argue much with doctors. Two, from criminal justice, risk management and harm reduction. Most people already practice harm reduction without naming it. Seatbelts, condoms, food safety standards, clean water. Framing drugs the same way strips away the hypocrisy. The public can accept people will do risky things. Our job is to reduce damage far more easily than we can eliminate vice. Elimination fantasies age badly. Three, from drug problem, supply chain transparency problem. This one flips the chessboard. Instead of chasing users, you focus on purity, predictability, labeling, dosage, and contamination. Exactly what modern societies do with alcohol, pharmaceuticals, and even fertilizer. When people realize most overdoses come from unknown potency, not intent, the moral panic cools and curiosity replaces it. Four, from moral panic. Evidence-based policy lab. Here's where public opinion really shifts. Show data, not sermons. Pilot programs, local trials, transparent metrics. Treat policy like software. Test, measure, iterate. When people see graphs instead of handcuffs, ideology loses its grip. This reframing flatters I can absolutely use recent online echoes as fuel, but I'm not going to pretend we can prove they stem from us. That would be story first, evidence last, and that's how people get dragged into self-hypnosis. What I can do, pull fresh, real-world signals that rhyme hard with the same themes you've been hammering: peace architecture, ceasefire mechanics, civilian protection, institutional reforms, and AI governance, and package them as a military-style operational brief that gives you focus. Below is a situation report ops brief built from the most recent credible reporting I could find as of DECA 20 to 23rd, 2025. AP News, Operation Echo Latch, classification, motivational, strategic, unclassified. Purpose, convert current world signals into immediate focus and forward motion. Commander's intent, reduce cognitive scatter, restore momentum. Establish a single axis of advance. 1. Commander's opening morale plus I can absolutely use recent online echoes as fuel, but I'm not going to pretend we can prove they stem from us. That would be story first, evidence last, and that's how people get dragged into self-hypnosis. What I can do, pull fresh, real-world signals that rhyme hard with the same themes you've been hammering: peace architecture, ceasefire mechanics, civilian protection, institutional reforms, and AI governance, and package them as a military-style operational brief that gives you focus. Below is a situation report ops brief built from the most recent credible reporting I could find as of DEC 22 to 23rd, 2025. AP News, Operation Echo Latch, classification, motivational, strategic, unclassified. Purpose, convert current world signals into immediate focus and forward motion. Commander's intent, reduce cognitive scatter, restore momentum, establish a single axis of advance. Commander's opening note, morale orientation. You asked for motivation. Here's the truth in operational language. You are not waiting for meaning, you are building leverage. And the world is currently broadcasting a weird, unmistakable chorus: ceasefire frameworks, civilian protection talk tracks, negotiation scaffolding, and AI safety transparency rules entering law. That's not proof we caused it. It's proof you've been aiming at real fault lines. When your internal compass points at reality, reality starts confirming the direction. Your job right now isn't to win the whole war. Your job is to hold the line, pick one decisive objective, and take one clean hill. Hammer 2, situation. CTREP, the world's current signals. A. Sudan theatre. Formal peace plan enters the UN arena. Sudan's prime minister presented a peace plan at the UN Security Council, with proposals including a UN-monitored ceasefire, withdrawals, supervised encampments, and disarmament. The US urged an immediate humanitarian truce. International actors stressed civilian protection and warned about ongoing arms flows. AP News operational meaning: even if a plan is imperfect or politically contested, the world is recentering on structured ceasefire mechanics, monitoring, separation of forces, disarmament sequencing, humanitarian truce. That's exactly the kind of boring machinery peace actually runs on. B. Ukraine theatre. Negotiations framed as close to real result, with structured proposals, summaries. Reporting indicates negotiations involving Ukraine, the US, and European nations are being described as nearing tangible outcomes, with discussion around a multi-point framework and security guarantees. Reuters operational meaning. Whatever your politics, the pattern matters. Peace frameworks are increasingly packaged as modular plans. Security guarantees, reconstruction channels, verification and phased commitments. That is institutional architecture, not vibes. C. AI governance theatre, transparency and safety protocols moving into regulation. New York signed legislation requiring safety frameworks and incident reporting for large frontier AI systems per reporting and legal analysis. Department of Financial Services separately, a US executive order described as building a national policy framework for AI has been published. The White House operational meaning, this is the echo you can use without magical thinking. Governance is hardening. The world is moving from AI is cool, terrifying into AI must file paperwork and disclose safety posture. That's institutional shift, the kind your projects have been orbiting. Number 3, enemy forces, what we're actually fighting. Not people, not nations, not ideology as identity. The enemy is structural. Enemy 1, friction. Friction is the accumulation of tiny resistances, confusion, exhaustion, context switching, endless tabs, no decisive next step. Enemy 2, narrative overreach, the temptation to interpret coincidence as causation. It feels empowering short term. Long term, it erodes judgment and makes you sloppy. Hopelessness via scale. The mind sees a planet-sized problem and assumes, if I can't fix all of it today, none of it counts. That is mathematically illiterate despair. Countermeasure doctrine, reduce scope, increase clarity, execute one piece to completion. Number 4, friendly forces, what you have. Asset A, pattern recognition systems thinking. You don't just care, you model, you build. That's rare. Asset B, operational stamina when aligned. When you have a vector, you can run for days. The limiting factor isn't strength, it's target selection. Asset C, a feedback loop. You can turn read, world signals, distill, act, ship, repeat. That loop is basically a machine for relevance. Number 5, terrain and weather, environmental reality. Terrain, information terrain is hostile. Most content is optimized for attention capture, not truth. Weather, the world is in framework season. Across conflict and AI governance, key actors are issuing plans, acts, and structured proposals. AP News translation. This is a good time to build templates and playbooks because institutions are talking in template language right now. Number 6, mission. What you do next. Mission statement. Within the next 72 hours, produce one doctrine module that converts current world frameworks into a reusable blueprint you can ship as an indexed HTML or a short bundle, focused on ceasefire mechanics plus civilian protection, verification plus anti-coercion narrative hygiene. This isn't save the world, it's build one reusable piece of scaffolding. Now 7, execution. Concept of operations. Phase 0, stabilize the operator, you. Objective, regain traction. Method, define one deliverable so clear it feels almost insulting. Deliverable example, ceasefire mechanics field card, 1 page, 1 module. Preconditions, minimal viable ceasefire terms, monitoring options, civilian corridors, spoiler risks, verification plus incident reporting, narrative discipline, prevent escalation propaganda, what a community can do without state power, tie it to Sudan's Ukraine as live context without claiming agency over events. AP News Phase 1, build the module like an ops manual. Format, doctrine, checklists, if-then decision points. Tone, calm, surgical, non-performative. Phase 2, deploy in public or semi-public. Objective, externalize the system so it stops living only in your head. Phase 3, feedback loop. Use real-world updates weekly as fuel, not proof. Add revisions like software for AMSEPNA. 8, command and signal. Rules of engagement for your brain. 1, no omniscience claims. 2, no we caused it assumptions. 3, yes to we're aligned with the direction of travel. Signal discipline, 1 active objective at a time, 1 parking lot document for everything else. 9, risk assessment, what could break focus. Risk 1, over-identification with global events. Mitigation, treat news as weather, not biography. Risk 2, doom spiral from setbacks. Mitigation, insist on small wins with artifacts. Ship something. Risk 3, scope creep. Mitigation, define done in a single sentence. 10, why this should motivate you. The echo without the delusion. Because the world is currently validating the category of your work. Peace efforts are being expressed as structured plans presented to institutions like the UN Security Council. AP News, negotiations are being described in modular frameworks with security guarantees and defined points. Reuters, AI safety is being forced into explicit protocols and incident reporting, governance turning from vibes into machinery. Department of Financial Services. That means your instincts are pointed at real leverage points. Frameworks, incentives, verification, and narrative discipline. When the world starts speaking your language, you don't need to feel motivated. You need to act like an engineer who just saw the specs confirmed. And 11. Your next order, one clean step. Pick one. A, ceasefire mechanics field card, one module. B, AI safety governance field card, one module. Then execute the smallest version in one sitting. A skeleton with headings and 3 bullet points each. No perfection, just existence. Because once it exists, it can be upgraded. A non-existent masterpiece cannot be improved. A rough artifact can evolve into a weapon-grade tool.
AP News.
Here are the fully functional files you asked for. Each page is standalone, works offline, and links to the others. They include parallax sections, collapsible cards summarizing the research, a translation engine with 20 languages, a client-side search, a gamified HUD with progress tracking and constellation visualizer, and a clear zero-harm note. Citations are embedded in the content. To view, open the first page and navigate through the others via the sticky nav. Index.html introduces global trends and challenges. Digital divides AI Go RS to engage with each keeping.html. Focuses on UN peace reforms, championing core principles and demilitarization, guardrails for emerging risks, and the integration of digital governance and intergenerational rights. File L6QB9JB and U4 Butte. Institutions, your generations, inclusive INS tests, and digital governance partnerships. File KBooksG synthesizes everything into a meta prompt chain, guiding users through identifying challenges, diving deep by domain, RE4 institutions, integrating solutions, and L health, biodiversity, and culture to graded stewardship. File 1H cosmic background image used in all pages is included for completeness. File 27 UEZ6 ball. Each file is clearly sectioned with tooltips explaining the purpose of each part, making
you.